Thanks for listening tonight. These are your BYU-Idaho radio evening headlines for Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. I'm Chandler Guadagnine. A man has pleaded not guilty this week to having drugs in his car following his arrest last November. EastIdahoNews.com reports 48-year-old Spencer Tolman is charged with felony trafficking meth and other drug charges. Shilley police arrested Tolman in November after he had stared at a police officer, sped away, and failed to put on a seatbelt. He was stopped and police said he, quote, had signs of recent drug use. So they searched his car and found a backpack that contained meth as well as several pipes and marijuana. Tolman will face a jury in April and could face up to 17 years in prison. During today's Wyoming State of the State address, Governor Mark Gordon highlighted many of his priorities for the coming year. The governor opened his remarks by highlighting the state's energy policy, saying the state creates 12 times more energy than they use. This line about his recent meeting with President-elect Donald Trump drew a standing ovation and extended applause.
The president told me, anything you need, Mark. Now that's something we have not heard for 4 years. And I told the president, Mr. President, Wyoming stands ready to drill, to mine, to shovel, and to get this country back on track.
Governor Gordon's budget requests focused on four main financial pillars: support for obstetrics and mental health care providers, funds to fight wildfires, $7 million for inflation-related expenses, and $3.5 million to expand the coal litigation fund. The governor also addressed the importance of continuing to improve the state's infrastructure and irrigation.
I call upon the legislature to send me a proposal not only to expedite the building of a new dam, but to also defend existing use and storage rights, protect the safety of those living below the dam, and provide appropriate assistance to those irrigators while the new dam is being built.
As his address neared its end, Governor Gordon spoke about property tax relief, saying Wyoming currently does not have enough money to cover those refunds. He then asked for $10.5 million to fund that promise. To view the full State of the State address, go to the Wyoming PBS YouTube channel. BYU-Idaho's dance department is working on some big changes. Student reporter Jack Esplin has the story.
Just 2 weeks into the new year, the BYU-Idaho dance department is already making some major changes. Among other things, the dance department is focusing on simplification of the major within the department and making it easier for students to learn a little bit of everything as they work towards their degree. Gary Larson, a professor of dance for the last 17 years, detailed the process of starting these changes with ballroom classes and also the major as a whole.
Our major was pretty complicated. We decided to move our ballroom classes into just one single class at each level. I think that's a simpler way to approach it. We took a look at our major and changed the major up quite a bit. Before we had 2 emphases in our major. Then we realized, it's almost the same degree. So we took away 2 emphases and now we just have a dance degree. But within the dance degree, you can go any direction.
Larson emphasized the freedom these revisions give dance students and how important they are in helping students to gain experience they'll need for their future careers.
Again, it's just a bigger menu that they can choose from. The job market right now really favors generalists, favors people who can do a little of everything.
The dance department topped it all off by making one more significant adjustment.
We simplified it further by saying, instead of doing an internship and a capstone, why don't you do one of those 2 things?
Overall, Larson says the changes will make things easier for students to progress with their degrees.
But this just opens things up to allow students to progress a little faster and a little easier. It's more understandable.
Larson further announced the revisions will go into full effect in the spring. For BYU-Idaho Radio, I'm Jack Esplin.
Speaking of changes, BYU-Idaho is also changing the way students and staff will log into BYU-Idaho online systems. The changes will take effect on February 12th, and they were announced today in an email from the university. Starting on February 12th, BYU-Idaho students and staff will be required to use their church accounts to sign in to BYU-Idaho online services like MyBYUI and Canvas. The hope is that the change will increase account security. Students who are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will need to create a non-member account on the church's website. Instructions and a link to connect a school account with a church account can be found in the email. The university recommends that you make the switch as soon as possible so that you do not lose access to your BYU-Idaho account. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to the Evening Headlines for January 15th, 2025. More news, interviews, and great content are available on our podcast feed. Search for BYU-Idaho Radio on your favorite podcast apps. We're on SoundCloud, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also ask your smart speaker to play KBYI 94.3 FM. This is BYU-Idaho Radio, and I'm Chandler Guadagnine.